Fresh scrutiny is facing the Hope Florida Foundation, an initiative led by First Lady Casey DeSantis. New documents show the program received $10 million settlement from a Medicaid contractor under irregular circumstances. Criminal and federal investigations are underway, and some lawmakers are now calling for accountability at the highest levels. Hope Florida was created in 2021 to connect Floridians with community resources. Now, internal records reveal a $10 million settlement from Medicaid contractor Centene was funneled to the foundation under direct pressure from the governor's office. Emails show Centene was directed to make the payment as a condition of resolving a larger settlement of $67 million. The paper trail shows that instead of direct community assistance, the funds were sent to political action committees opposing a 2024 marijuana legalization amendment.
I mean, this is a misuse of Medicaid money. This is money laundering.
The Attorney General's office at the time tried to distance itself from the payment, even though records show that Chief Deputy AG John Gard played roles in structuring the settlement. Documents reveal warnings that the foundation could face IRS penalties, including a potential $2.5 million excise tax, because a donation could be considered political activity. The president of Hope Florida, Joshua Hay, acknowledged in past hearings that mistakes were made in record keeping. Meanwhile, Leon County prosecutors and federal investigators are reviewing the settlement and its distribution. Republican State Representative Alex Andrade led a state house investigation into Hope Florida, which was later ended after key witnesses failed to testify. He continued this week to call for accountability while speaking to CBS Miami's Jim DeFady.
I absolutely think James Uthmeyer should resign as Attorney General. He can't, with a straight face, prosecute anyone else for misuse of Medicaid funds.
Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer was Governor DeSantis' chief of staff before being elevated to his current position. Uthmeyer has defended the political funding transfer as legal and has not been charged with a crime. Governor DeSantis has also defended Hope Florida, calling the fund transfers voluntary contributions. Critics, however, warn the diversion of Medicaid dollars could leave taxpayers on the hook for millions in federal repayments and potential IRS penalties. And Mitch, I'd like to start with you. This is a story that has so many layers, started several years ago during the Centene settlement with different states. Then we go to the state of Florida. What are the latest developments in these layers? It just seems like a lot to peel back.
Well, you know, this report that came out, actually hundreds of pages of documents came out after public information requests were made months ago by reporters like from the Tampa Bay Times. And what we saw, as was mentioned in the setup here, was that Centene itself, the healthcare company who owed the state of Florida all this money for years, trying to get this negotiation fixed, they were very wary about all of a sudden this request to put this extra money, originally $5 million and then doubled to $10 million to these two other groups that we all know later was sent to a political action committee. And so I think for people who are trying to follow the story along, this is more damning news. And you mentioned Jack Campbell, who's in the second state attorney's office up in Tallahassee, is investigating. We haven't heard a thing from him, which I guess is good, right? They're just looking into this. And so we'll see where this go. James Uthmeyer, you mentioned Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis is saying this is all smear, this is all BS, this is all political, he said earlier on. It doesn't look like it is. And I really think it's important for the taxpayers of Florida to really follow this along. Andrade, to his credit, is staying on this. The session will begin in January. I would think that if nothing happens with Jack Campbell, there might be something with his committee. So story's not going away.
Paul, this really emphasizes the importance of journalists asking for public records requests. None of this information would be out in the public domain without those.
Well, that's absolutely right. Florida has a tremendous history of open government in the sunshine, based on both open meetings and open records. Mm-hmm. And without that tradition, it would be very, very hard to pursue this kind of story. And it's not designed to make life easy for journalists. It's designed, those laws are designed so that the public can have a real understanding of what's happening. And these records are amazingly revealing about the process that led to this result.
And for the person at home who's thinking, well, maybe it is more of a political smear campaign, give them an idea of what the process is like when a reporter is going through these public records, going through documentation. What is the conversation from the editor, their supervisor, of where is this information coming from, accountability, attribution?
Well, the editor is pressing, how do we know? That's the basic question. How do we know this? And again, the records, as you pointed out earlier, are a real authority on how we know what was happening along the way. Nobody wanted their fingerprints on this deal from the state. They were all trying to avoid it. And Centene was, the vendor was insisting that somebody take responsibility for asking for this money to go to the Hope Florida Foundation, which was then funneled on to these political interest groups.
And when you see the meetings that were going on, Centene was having meetings with other states. They were accused of overcharging, overbilling for prescription drugs, and so they were having conversations about settlements with other states, and it seemed that they knew that this conversation within the state of Florida was very different. How do you see all of this, Jennifer?
I think it's just corruption, plain and simple. It's more corruption from a man who likes to create laws to suit his desires and take money that should be public money, going back to Medicaid, and use it for his own ends, his own political ends. So you're saying, this isn't necessarily political. At the end of the day, it is. He used that money to fight against a constitutional amendment, or a ballot initiative, excuse me. So, it kind of shows that Governor Ron DeSantis will do anything he wants to do to get what he wants.
What would be the next move, Mitch, in this that you're looking at? Because you've been doing a number of stories on this.
Yeah, I'm, again, as I mentioned earlier, looking at Jack Campbell, the state attorney. That's the who we know for certain. One time only he said, though, that his office is looking at this. Obviously, it may take months and months. Who knows when he'll come up with something. I hope, we all eagerly await that. I do think, I guess I mentioned as well, when the legislature gets back in January, they were hot on this. And Joe Andrade, he was leading that committee that was looking all into this. And it kind of abrupted end, right the week before the session ended. It's like, okay, it's all over now. And I think a lot of people were disappointed by that because he was kind of moving along. There was a narrative that they were showing in real live testimony. So, it's only a few months away.
He did explain later that because he got that backlash, right, from so many people asking why it was dropped.
Yeah.
And he explained how he was part of a health committee, a committee that was looking into the health administration in Florida, that it was not an investigative criminal committee.
Right, it wasn't, right, that's, he tried to subpoena some people and not everybody showed up at those meetings. But again, I believe he's a chair again starting in January, or actually in the fall when the committee meetings begin. So I think all eyes go to him as well. And as you saw here, he's not dropping this, obviously. He's still very leading the way in terms of the legislature trying to put a check on this. He thinks that Uthmeyer, he's calling for an independent investigation, and that would be James Uthmeyer calling for that, and that doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to reinforce the obvious, he's a Republican.
Yes.
He's a Republican. So to your question about the partisan dynamics of this, it is a Republican member of the House who is taking the lead on the oversight of what happened here. And imagine what would happen if this were a Democratic deal.
Or an independent or a non-party affiliation.
So I really think that it's telling that a Republican member of the House is taking the lead on this case, and it will have consequences within the Republican Party as well as the more general electorate.